Namaste and good morning everyone. We'll start our class with the prayers. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Now we'll chant Mahamrityunjaya mantra 3 times to pray for those who are in suffering. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhanan Mrutyurmukshiyamamrutat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Iva Bandhanan Mrutyurmukshiyamamrutat. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukam Eva Bandhanan Mrutyurmukshiyamamrutat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome everyone. We'll continue our study of Gita. Last time we had covered this verse number 26 in second chapter. So till verse number 25, Lord had described about the self, about the Atma, the various properties, the way it can be described, as well as its difference from the body. So there the discussion or the discourse of Lord happened or ended at this verse number 25, where he is saying that the self, this Atma, is unmanifest. This is not an object of thought, and this is unchangeable, unmodifiable. That's how it is spoken as. So if you know this self in this manner, there is no reason to grieve. There is no cause to grieve. Therefore, you should not grieve. So looking at Arjuna, Lord must have seen that it really didn't remove his grief. So he takes another line to make Arjuna understand that why grief is not proper, why grief is not valid, why grief, lamenting is not justified. So then he says that if you don't consider the self, if you don't understand the self the way I described, but you consider it constantly being born and constantly subject to death, if that's how you consider it, even then there is no reason for you to grieve. So he tries to explain from another perspective that why the grief is still not valid, why it is still not justified. So the next two verses, which we'll study today, look into that aspect, that he is talking from this perspective, that Arjuna, the truth I told you. But if you are not in a position to be able to grasp the truth, despite my telling, and you have a different understanding of the self, even with that understanding, there is no cause for grief. So we'll see how come. So that is what is being described now. So we'll chant the verse first. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrutyuh dhruvam janma mrutasya cha tasmad aparharyerthe na tvam shochitum arhasi. Now the whole verse together. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrutyuh dhruvam janma mrutasya cha tasmad aparharyerthe na tvam shochitum arhasi. We'll see the word meanings or the grammatical analysis of different words. Jatasya, it's a nominal. He is indeclinable. Dhruva is nominal. Mrityu is nominal. Dhruvam is nominal. Janma is nominal. Mrutasya is nominal. Cha is indeclinable. Tasmat is indeclinable. Aparharye is nominal. Arthe is nominal. Na is indeclinable. Tvam is nominal pronoun. Shochitum is indeclinable. Arhasi is a verb form. So we see only one verb. That means it's a one sentence, but there is an implied verb there in between. So we'll see what is that. So jatasya, if you remember the form of Rama, like Ramasya, it is genitive singular, masculine, and base word is jata. Jata means one who is born. Or so of that, one who is born of that. He is indeclinable, indeed. Dhruva, certain. So Dhruva is, it's a nominative singular like Rama, masculine, and the word here is Dhruva. That is Akaranta word, masculine. It means certain. It's a nominative singular. Mrityu, also nominative singular, masculine, and here the word is Mrityu, means death. So this is essentially one sentence. Here the word asti is implied, the verb form. So one who is born, indeed it is certain that death is also. So death is certain. So for the one, instead of, will in English we will probably say more like for. So for one who is born, death is certain. That is the simple meaning of this sentence. For one who is born, death is certain. Here dhruvam, the same word has been now put in the nominative, in the neuter form, but it's a nominative singular. And you will see why is it put in the singular here when it is neuter here when it is masculine there. The meaning remains the same, certain. Janma, it's nominative singular, neuter. and the word here is Janman, the base word, Nakaranta. It means birth. So because of this, Janman being neuter and Dhruva has to qualify it, it is also put in the neuter. Mrutasya, just like Jatasya, here is the Mrutasya, nominative, genitive, singular, masculine. The base word is Mruta. So all these words are very simple. They are mostly Akaranta. Mruta one means one who is dead. Cha means end. So this is another sentence. So for the one who is dead, birth is certain. So first is for one who is born, death is certain, and for the one who is dead, birth is certain. Tasmat, therefore, we have seen this word earlier also. Therefore, aparharye, this is seventh case locative singular. Aparharye. So unavoidable. Aparharye means unavoidable. Arthe, this is also locative singular. Artha, in the matter of. In the matter. So basically in the matter which is unavoidable. In the unavoidable matter. Na means not. Tvam, this is a nominative singular. Masculine. Here the base word is Yushmat. You. Shochitum is indeclinable. To grieve. Arhasi. This is a verb form. We have seen this verb form earlier also in the previous verse itself. Same words. Na tvam shochit, na shochitum arhasi. So tvam here also. Previous verse. Na tvam shochitum arhasi. So the same verb here is say. We can. So it's a latlakara, second person singular, parasmipadi, arha dhatu, to deserve or to be worthy of. So Lord is saying here, therefore, in this inevitable or unavoidable thing, you ought not to grieve. You should not grieve. There is no reason for you to grieve. Why? Because this thing is unavoidable. What is unavoidable? This fact that one who is born, death is certain. There is no avoiding it. It's impossible to avoid the death for the one who is born. There are double certainty Lord is using, like he also, indeed, and it is certain. That means there is no doubt about it. it is for sure that death will come to one who is born. Similarly, for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in this matter, which is unalterable, inevitable, unavoidable, you should not grieve. There is no reason for you to grieve, because grief happens somewhere where I can alter some things and I'm not able to. But this is an unalterable situation. This is just the law of nature. That's how the things are. So Lord is basically saying that even if you take this point of view that self, the Atma, is ever subject to birth and death, even then there is no reason for you to grieve because of this unalterable situation. So please consider here that Arjuna is grieving because he is concerned that Bhishma, Drona, his beloved people, they will die as a result of war. Lord is saying they will die anyway because they all are born. And if they die, it is also certain they would be reborn. So considering, knowing this thing as such, there is no reason for you to grieve. And Arjuna may say, well, I am concerned that they will die now because of the war. So Lord is saying, what is the guarantee, even if they survive, that you will not die, you will remain. So he is also pointing to Arjuna that not only for whom you are grieving, they are subject to death. The one who is grieving, that is you, also subject to death. So considering either situation, there is no reason to grieve, no justification to grieve. Guruji has said multiple times in his discourses, there is a famous verse, Nishwase nahi vishwasa. There is no certainty when the breath will stop. The only certainty is that it will stop some point of time. We just don't know when. Whether we do something or we don't do something, there is no guarantee that we can avoid that fate, even for a short time. There is a story of Parikshit. He was a king, grandson of Arjuna, who was ruling the kingdom after Pandavas left. So Arjuna's grandson later on, after this story, after Mahabharata war. And it so happened that he insulted one sage. That sage did not say anything, but his son of the sage, he could not bear that. He cursed Parikshit without Parikshit being in the spot at that time present, just knowing that Parikshit insulted his father. He cursed Parikshit that whoever has insulted my father in this manner will be bitten by a ferocious snake 7 days from now and will die. So when Parikshit, he learnt of that curse, that he only has 7 days to live, he approached different sages and saints to know that what is my duty, what should I do? I have only 7 days left. So then Shukadeva came. When he heard this thing from Parikshit, he started laughing. Parikshit said, why are you laughing? I will be dead after 7 days, and I am so concerned. And he told Parikshit that you are saying you have 7 days to live, that means you know for sure that death will not approach you for next 7 days. But for me, I cannot say that death will not approach me in the next moment. I'm not sure of even next moment. So death is certain, it's just the time is not certain. We do not know when. This thing that one who is born is certain to die. Just like the sunrise and sunset. Sun rises, or at least it appears to rise from the Earth's perspective, and then it sets also. That is inevitable. Once it rises, it sets, it sets, it rises. So the same inevitable cycle that somebody starts grieving, oh, now the evening is coming, and he starts grieving, is a sign of foolishness or not understanding the unalterable law of nature. So therefore, Lord is telling Arjuna that understand that this is the truth of life, and therefore there is no need to grieve. There is also a prayer in English, this is called serenity prayer, that God grant me the serenity to accept the things I can change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. So this is one thing Lord is telling Arjuna, that this is unchangeable. Therefore, no point in grieving about it. Then coming to the next verse. So we'll chant this verse. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyaktanidhananyeva tatra ka paridevana. Again the verse together, whole verse together. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyaktanidhananyeva tatra ka paridevana. This is probably the shortest verse in terms of number of individual words. Very few individual words. Avyaktadini, this is a nominal. Bhutani is a nominal. Vyaktamadhyani is a nominal. Bharata is a nominal. Avyaktanidhanani is also nominal. This is indeclinable. This is indeclinable. This is nominal pronoun. This is nominal. So as you see that there is no verb, and we have discussed that without a verb the Sanskrit sentence is not complete. That means verb is implied, and you can probably see here in the Anvaya that we have provided the implied verbs here. Avyaktadini, nominative, plural, neuter. So vanam, vane, vanani, like that. Avyaktadini. Base word here is avyaktadi. So this is a compound word, avyakta adi. Vyakta means manifest, Avyakta means unmanifest, and Adi means beginning. One who is unmanifest in the beginning. Bhutani. This is also nominative, plural, neuter. The word here is bhuta. Living being. So living beings. That means all the living beings, they are unmanifest in the beginning. Vyakta madhyani. Same pattern, nominative, plural, neuter, and here the word is Vyakta madhya. Vyakta means manifest, madhya means middle. So manifest in the mid, one who is manifest in the middle. Bharata, nominative, sorry, this is vocative, singular, masculine. Bharata. So this is a word we have seen earlier also. This refers to the one who is born in the clan of Bharata. There was a ancient king in the lineage of Arjuna whose name was Bharata. So all the descendants, they are called Bharata. So here Lord is addressing Arjuna. So it is for Arjuna, saying that Arjuna of Bharata, who is born in this particular clan of Bharata. Avyakta nidhanani, just like Avyaktadini, Vyaktamadhyani, Avyakta nidhanani. This is also nominative, plural, neuter. So just like Avyakta Adi was the beginning and Avyakta is unmanifest. Here Avyakta is unmanifest and Nidhana means death. So one who is unmanifest in death or after death. Eva, indeed. So this is one sentence here. If you look at here, He Bharata, Bhutani, Avyaktadini, Vyaktamadhyani, Avyakta Nidhanani eva santi. Oh Arjuna, the one who is born in this great clan of Bharata, living beings are unmanifest in the beginning. That means before birth, they are unmanifest. Nobody has seen a living being before the birth. They are manifest in the middle, and again they go to unmanifest in death or after death. That is again he is just pointing out one property, one characteristic of all the living beings. That living beings are unmanifest in the beginning. they manifest in the middle, and they are unmanifest in the death. So sometimes a simile is given with an arrow. So an arrow is being shot from the darkness. One does not see when it is in the darkness. Then an area comes where there is a light. Arrow passes through that lighted area and is visible. And again it gets into an area which is dark, and again it becomes invisible, unmanifest. So even though journey of arrow is continuous, we only perceive the portion which we see, that is in the light. Before it comes into light, it is unmanifest. After it goes away from the light, it is unmanifest. Middle portion is manifest. That is the state of living beings. Before birth, we do not know. After death also, we do not see anything, we do not know. We only see the middle portion, the manifest portion. Again, how long is that manifest portion? We do not know. But this is the state of all the living beings. So this being the case, tatra means there, or in that matter. Ka, it's a pronoun. It's a nominative singular feminine. The base word here is kim. It becomes ka as a nominative singular. Means what? It's an interrogative pronoun. Paridevana. This is also nominative singular feminine. And here the base word is the same as akaranta feminine. Paridevana means grief. So there, in that matter, asti is the verb we supplied. What is the grief? That means what is there to grieve? That's where it essentially means that this is the case. I mean, this is the truth of nature, that living beings are unmanifest in the beginning. So all these people whom you are lamenting about, Bhishma, Drona, you are just seeing their middle part and you see that they manifest, and you are worried about that they will die, but death is nothing but basically them going into the unmanifest, the manifest becoming unmanifest, and you can't stop that. You can change that. Not only for Bhishma and Drona, but also for yourself. This is just how the living beings are. All the living beings pass through this thing, that unmanifest in the beginning, manifest in the middle, and again unmanifest in the death. So what is there to grieve about it? That's how it is. So essentially what Lord is describing here is that considering the things as they are, even if you take another view, that self is constantly subject to birth and death, there is still no cause for sorrow. So a person who understands the self as beyond birth and death, never subject to any change, that person certainly will not have sorrow, because that self is unchangeable. But even if a person does not understand that aspect of the self, but considers self as constantly subject to birth and death, as most of the people in this world are, we don't understand the self, ourselves, as unchangeable beings, ever eternal beings without subject to birth and death. We do not understand, most of us, this aspect of the self. We take ourselves, the self, as constant subject to birth and death. But even then, even in that case, Lord is saying that there is no room for sorrow. And why is there no room for sorrow? Because the nature of the thing is that one who is born, the death is certain, and for the one who is dead, the birth is certain. So, and this is unavoidable. So you ought not to grieve. And this he is telling about this flimsy nature of the life, that all the living beings, what you are seeing only is the manifest portion. You do not know the unmanifest portion, which is the beginning or the end. That is not seen. But that's how it is. They are unmanifest in the beginning, unmanifest in the death. Only the middle portion, that is manifest. So what is there to grieve? And we do not know how long is the manifest portion. There was a famous philosopher who was Guru of Adi Shankara, actually great Guru of Adi Shankara, grand Guru, Guru of Guru, Acharya Gaudapada. He wrote a commentary on Mandukya Upanishad. It is known as Mandukya Karikas. So there he gives this principle that something which does not exist in the beginning, something which does not exist in the end, it appears to exist in the middle, essentially it doesn't exist at all. So like a dream, world was not there in the beginning, it is not there in the end, and even when one is dreaming, it is not there actually. Despite its appearance, it is not there. So from this principle, one can also derive that principle that self alone is, and whatever is unmanifest is actually unmanifest, despite it appearing as manifest in the middle. So I just wanted to give you that perspective also of Acharya Gaudapada. So with this, I'll take the questions. If you have any, please feel free to send any questions you have. There is a question here. The shochitum is not a verb. So this is the shochitum, and this word has come earlier also. We discussed about it, that it is not a verb, it's indeclinable. The word itself is derived from a verb, shuj, that is to grieve. But it's a tumun pratyaya. We studied in Sanskrit class. So tumun pratyaya makes it infinitive participle kind of thing, and it makes the form as indeclinable. It simply means that irrespective of the gender, irrespective of the person or the tense, the form of this word does not undergo any change. So it's indeclinable. There is an interesting point here. In a previous class, you told that self neither does any action nor causes to do any action. But the masters often told that soul is doing everything. The soul is seeing through your eyes, walking through your feet. So this is a very interesting point, and it requires probably longer discussion than this class may allow. Lord actually himself in Gita says at some point that I do not do anything, and at the same time he will say that nothing happens without my will. How do we reconcile these two statements seemingly opposite? So there are some examples are given, some similes are given. So if you look at the light of the sun, when the sun rises, the whole life on the earth, so to speak, springs into action, into activity. Things start happening. The flowers start blooming. The people start getting up, going to the work. Everything happens because of the presence of sun. Yet sun cannot be said to be doing any action. So even though it is without the presence of self, no action can happen. But self itself is neither the doer nor causes anyone to do something. Yet in its presence, all the activities happen. When masters say that soul is doing everything, that is a means of sadhana, that spiritual practice. Because I consider myself as doer, and therefore I get into all sort of problems in the world. So because of this sense of doership, I also become responsible, and I also consider myself as the author of the fruits of the action, and get into a lot of trouble because of that. Actually, all the griefs in the life are because of that particular reason. So if you consider that the soul is doing everything, the power of God, so the way it is also described is that Purusha and Prakriti. The Prakriti is a power of the self. It's also described as Maya, which is the power causing everything to move in this universe. The self itself is completely unaffected by the Maya. Yet the Maya does not exist separate from the self. It is considered an inescrutable power of the self. So if you consider the self alone is there, including the power which does, then you can say soul is doing everything. On the other hand, if you consider Maya as neither existing nor non-existing power of the self, and self is completely unaffected, then you can see it from that perspective. So I'm not sure if it got clarified anything, but it is something which is a very interesting thing, and this probably we might, when we start Bhagavad-Gita later on, we might have more verses which throw more light on this particular aspect. How do we know with human sense that one who dies will be born again? It is based on faith, isn't it? So from the perspective of human senses, we do not know that one who dies will be born again. That is true. But if you consider the everything in the nature, that is just undergoing change. So any object, it comes into being at a certain point of time. So if you make table or chair has a date of birth, and chair also has date of death. The date of death is for the chair, not for the wood. Wood eventually gets into another form. Whatever form it is, whether it is a heap also, it's a form. It's a block, it's a form. But eventually it gets into a form. So in that sense, if you consider the soul also subject to the birth and death, then it applies that it will also be born. So in that sense, it is described. So Shochitum means grief, Paridevna means grief. Yes, Shochitum means to grieve. So it becomes an infinitive participle. Paridevana, on the other hand, is a noun. So just the meaning is about the same, but the application is different grammatically. So there is a question here, if there is awareness of our existence in the middle, but no awareness prior to birth or after death, what exactly is this awareness and what happens to it when we no longer exist? So these are the questions which one needs to ponder. So you have to understand this aspect, that this is the point of view which Lord is not supporting. Lord is only telling Arjuna that even if you are holding this point of view, then this thing follows and there is no reason to grieve. Lord has already described the self, which can also be called awareness, that it has no beginning, middle, or end. It is ever existing. So something ever existing cannot have beginning, middle, or end. This beginning, middle, or end can only apply when one takes the self to be constantly subject to birth and death. So think from this perspective. The truth is, Lord has already told that self is, or awareness is, ever existing, not subject to beginning, middle, or the end. So there's your question that there is awareness of our existing in the middle but no awareness. What exactly this awareness? If you ponder over this question, then the nature of the awareness will reveal itself, which is ever existing. So this question becomes, in that case, meaningless. What happens to it when we no longer exist? There is a question here, are we conscious in our sleep, that you are asking me, or are you going to answer yourself? I think you should know the answer because you sleep every day. I think that are you conscious in your sleep or not? But the question here is probably related to that if awareness is ever existing, then why am I not conscious in my sleep? So when you are conscious of something, when in the wakeful state, you are conscious of something. So you see the trees, for example, you are conscious of the tree as well as you are conscious of yourself as one who is seeing the tree, one who knows the tree, one who knows this wakeful state. And in that wakeful state, one who knows different objects. So that awareness, that self-aware, that I am aware, that I am in a wakeful state. And in that wakeful state, I am aware of all the objects. Therefore, what happens in sleep? There are no objects to be aware of because mind is merged. So because there is no mind to perceive, there is no awareness of any objects. But when you get up from the sleep, you say that I slept very well if you have a good sleep, or I did not sleep well. That shows your awareness of the state of sleep. Otherwise, how could you say that I slept very well? So that's where the awareness of the sleeping state, that I do not know anything in this state, that awareness is the same, which knows in the wakeful state that I'm aware of all the objects. So that awareness is unchangeable, it never changes. It knows both the states, wakefulness and sleep. There is a question here, after death of body we are, but without body, till we get a new body. But if we die consciously, we will not come back, says Krishna in Bhagavad-Gita. So I do not know if that is a question or a comment or just your point of view or your understanding. First of all, the way the self is described in Bhagavad-Gita in the previous verses, self actually exists without any body whatsoever. With the body, the self does not undergo any change because of the body. Body, so to speak, becomes an attribute of the self, and it can live fine without any attributes also. Even when with the body, self is still the same. So self truly does not have undergo any change because of any body. Now this thing which applies, that if we die consciously, that is that individual self that I consider myself as limited being. But even when I am consider myself as limited being, the nature of the reality, the nature of the self, is still remains unchanged, that unchangeable self. So when I die consciously, or I don't have to die consciously actually, I just become, I know that aspect of the truth. While living itself, I know that I am without a body. I have nothing to do with this body. There is a question here. How can I truly capture this knowledge that we should not grieve? I understand the theory, but I still grieve when someone dies. So true. You have said something very true. That we can understand, we can read Gita, we can try to understand the meaning, and logically it makes sense that one does not need to grieve. Yet grief is still there. Not only when someone dies, that of course is a very situation which causes the grief almost for everyone. But even in day-to-day things, the grief comes to me. So how can I capture this knowledge? And truly, because we do not understand the Lord, not only we do not understand, that Lord has said, even Arjuna did not understand in the previous verses when Lord described this knowledge. Therefore, Lord came to this track that even if you do not accept the self as I told you, but have this understanding, there is no reason to grieve. How do I make this knowledge as a part of my life? How do I really overcome the grief? That is where all the spiritual practices are given by the masters. Like we practice Kriya Yoga. So slowly, what happens? This knowledge does not manifest in us. This does not become a part and parcel of us because of impurities of the mind. What is impurity of the mind? Impurity of the mind is in terms of very strong preferences, raga and dvesha, the very strong likes and dislikes. That this thing must happen or this thing should not happen. So a sadhana, a spiritual practice is given that helps to purify the mind. In a pure mind, this knowledge shines easily. That's what the scriptures and masters say. When this knowledge shines, then that knowledge becomes really a part and parcel of you, not separate from you, and grief goes forever. So there are different kinds of sadhana, of course. One can contemplate on these things which we are discussing, and one that is a sadhana in itself. One can do yoga and pranayama, like Kriya Yoga is a wonderful sadhana. One can do chanting of the Lord's name, that is another sadhana. So there are a lot of sadhanas are given, and those help. Even if we do not capture this knowledge in totality, when one starts walking on the path of sadhana sincerely, mind gets purified, and to a large extent one is able to overcome the grief. Not completely. The completely it happens thoroughly and without any shade of doubt when this knowledge becomes really part and parcel of us. So thank you for all these discussions. If there are no more questions, we'll close the class with the prayers. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Thank you all.